You you guys are in Unlocking Second Chances, Navigating Credit and Reentry After Incarceration. So my name is Jennifer Nail. I'm the reentry coordinator for the Cincinnati region with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections Office of Reentry. I'm a planning member with Building Bridges of Opportunity. I really hope you're enjoying today's virtual events, and I hope that you're able to join our regional in-person offerings tomorrow. As we move through today's session, you guys can use the chat function with any questions. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. We will work hard to make sure that all of your questions get answered. Jamie Kendrick-Porter came to us with this idea for a workshop, and it fit right in with the goals of the community experience today. She was moved to be here today by some complex personal experiences. I'm going to let her introduce those for this group here in just a moment. Sorry, letting some folks in from the waiting room there. Okay, sorry. Monitoring all the folks still joining us today. But the session was perfect for our needs because finances can impact every moment of the reentry process. And we heard Ronnie talk this morning about the complexities of housing, for example. And in a time of housing crisis and inflation, financial preparedness becomes all the more crucial. I talk to people in need of housing all the time, and they know that they're going to have doors closed due to their felony backgrounds, but that makes financial preparedness become even more crucial to their search. So Jamie's bringing us a lot of information that can directly influence people. But before we move to her, we wanted to kick today off with someone who comes to us with some lived experience. So I want to introduce Matt Platt, who currently resides in Akron. He's going to share his reentry experience after being released from 33 years of incarceration. He started creating a reentry plan in the last few years that he was incarcerated, and now encourages other folks to start forming a network even before they are released. He worked with True Freedom Ministries to overcome some of those initial obstacles, such as employment, housing, and transportation. And since his release 3 years ago, Matt has been promoted several times at his job. He's currently a supervisor, and he recently bought a new car, and last month he purchased his first home. Matt's credit score is currently in the mid 700s, which is awesome. And he was able to build upon his release credit score of 0. So he attributes his successes to the grace of God, his hard work and determination, and having a strong support system. He loves sharing his story with others to let everyone know that successful reentry is possible. He is sharing his lunch break with us today, so we appreciate his time even more. But Matt, thank you for being here, and I'm anxious to hear what you have to share.
Thank you. You just stole all my thunder. I don't have to say nothing.
I just do what I'm told.
Yeah. Well, let me start from the beginning, give you a brief testimony, then I'll jump into what we need to talk about. And I'll just start from the beginning. Ever since I was a little kid, I always had the belief that God existed. As a young teenager, though, I just never took it that seriously. I didn't think I had to. I came from a good family. I received decent grades in school. I excelled at sports. I even went to church occasionally. So never in a million years would I ever imagine myself being in prison, especially not at the young age of 17. But fortunately, that's precisely where I found myself for taking a person's life. But it was, despite that terrible tragedy, it was there in the early stages of my confinement where I began to take my faith seriously. I acquired a Bible and I started reading God's word on a daily basis. And with each new day, I started to learn more and more about this guy named Jesus. And shortly thereafter, I gave my life to Christ and accepted him as my Lord and Savior. Now, my situation didn't change. I was still facing a life sentence. And as you said, I served 33 of those years in prison. But fortunately, I was walking with the Lord for 32 of those years. And I wasn't always perfect during that time, and it certainly hasn't been easy, but I never would have made it this far, be the person I am today without the Lord in my life. So I got to give him credit first and foremost. But while I was in my incarceration, God just shielded me, especially by being a young teenager thrown in that environment. It was truly the grace of God. He just shielded me from harm. He put the right people in my path. He allowed me to maintain my peace and sanity. He just got me through that 33 years like I was in a bubble. And part of that, the people he introduced me to were people from the ministry. True Freedom Ministries is one of them. And I led a pro-social lifestyle while I was in there. I went to programs, I went to Bible studies, I went in school. I was able to get my bachelor's degree while I was in there. But by going to these programs, I didn't know it at the time. I was just going to programs just to do something positive with my time in there. But I was meeting these wonderful people that would come in to teach these programs and that would come in and volunteer and do the Bible studies. And over years and years and years of attending these same programs and Bible studies, you build a rapport with these volunteers and a friendship. And that's what I did. And pretty soon I was helped facilitating these programs that they were running. And I got their trust, and we just, developed such a strong bond that when the time came for me to get released, they were real familiar with me by attending their programs year after year after year. So they bent over backwards to help me because they seen me helping myself. So True Freedom, upon my release, they provided me a car, all paid for. It was an older Toyota Camry, but that was one less burden that I had to struggle with of having a car payment or whatever. So they gave me a means of transportation to get to my job that they also provided for me. They had connections in the community where they got me this job to start off at. And I had 9 $1 raises in the short time I've been here. And like you said, I'm now a supervisor, and this is all through the ministry. And housing was my biggest obstacle, not because I was in prison, but because I had no credit. Not that I had bad credit, I just didn't have no credit at all. And to overcome that, I even offered, look, I know I don't have no credit, but I'm willing to pay for the whole year in advance to make up for that. And everyone's like, well, we can't do that, it's against our policy. So I had to go on Facebook Marketplace and find a private landlord that was willing to take a chance on me and to rent out to me. And that's what I did. I found a house, not an apartment. And it was real cheap in a great neighborhood. So the Lord blessed me again in that area. But that was my biggest obstacle, finding housing, because when I got out of the halfway house, because I had no credit, I couldn't get no apartment. So I had to go to a faith-based house that was run by a church in Akron, where 4 of us lived in this house. We all had our own private bedrooms, but we shared the rest of the house. We shared the kitchen, shared the bathroom, the living room. So I had to go there for a few months until I could build up my credit and get this house from this landlord. And one of the ways I was able to do that is my bank, PNC, gave me a secure card that only had a $500 limit. And I still got it today. Now that my credit's in the mid 700s, I get all these offers from cards. Buy something, say it was a pizza, pay it off, buy something, pay it off. And just by keep using that card, paying it off, using it, paying it off, my credit was slowly building and building. Like you said, today I just bought a new car. Last month I just bought my first house. So Lord is continuing blessing me, but it's because of the ministry and the people, volunteers, and the network that I was able to build while I was on the inside to help me. And what I had is what you call soft landing when I got out. Unfortunately, not everyone has that when they step out of prison. I did. I was blessed and fortunate. And that's why it's so vital for guys and women of incarcerated to get involved, go to these programs, go to Bible studies, go to counseling, do these things, because you meet these people. And if these people can't help you, they know someone who can. But you'll never meet these people if you just sit in the unit and play dominoes and cards. So you have to do the legwork yourself. You have to show people that you're willing to change, you're willing to help yourself. Then that's where the volunteers and the nice people that come into play. So you kind of meet them halfway. do your part, then they'll do their part when the time comes to help you. So that's how I managed to, because there was all kinds of, especially after 33 years, I never had a job before, and doing all that time and getting thrown into society, and they expect, okay, here you go, good luck. Without that network, without that support system, I don't know where I'd be today. So they helped me tremendously, and I'm living proof of what you volunteers and what you people do to help the people who get released. I'm a prime example of the hard work and effort that you guys put in. I'm the result of that. So I'm a success story of that. Fortunately, not everyone has this success. That's why I don't mind going around telling my story, because especially when I go back, because I have the privilege now with my same ministry that helped me, I have the privilege to go back inside the prisons with them and share some words of encouragement and offer the men in there words of hope. And I enjoy that because that's how it was done to me. So I just want to give others hope and tell my story, because we all have our own particular storms. Mine just happened to be 33 years of prison. Someone else's storm might be something else, but God saw me through mine. He can see them through theirs. And that's the message I try to get across. And I mainly try to tell them to take advantage of these programs and services that are offered inside the prison, because these people mean well and they're there to help you. But it's your job to take that help. You can't be prideful and turn it down or just not go at all. Yes, you have two choices leaving prison. You can leave better or you can leave bitter. I was bound and determined to leave better, and I put in the work to do so. So when I go in, I always tell them, expand your toolbox. I'm a firm believer, if the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. But as I attended programs, as I went to school, as I went to Bible studies, as I went to counseling, I was able to expand my toolbox. So now I got a saw, I got a wrench, I got a screwdriver. Now I can handle things more appropriately because I got the proper tools I didn't have at 17. So that's why I encourage the men when I go in there, expand your toolbox, take advantage of these programs, take advantage of this school, take advantage of these Bible studies, because there are people there that help you. You're going to need that help once you step out of here. So I'm probably way under time, but that's my life in gist.
No, it's okay, Matt. Thank you for sharing that. We love any chance to platform success stories. You know, sometimes working in reentry it's hard and frustrating and full of disappointment and irritation at seeing the gaps, you know, in the systems that we work within. And having a success story like yourself to come and share your experience is such a nice way to kind of reinvigorate our perspective. And what I was thinking as you were talking, the thought that I normally conclude video in-reach sessions that I run in the institution with is that the single most important thing somebody can do as they begin their reentry process is to advocate for themselves, to be the person who asks for help when they need it. And it's nice to hear you affirming that that is accurate. You know, I always tell folks we have all these partners that are ready to open their door. They are ready to answer their phone. But unless they are hiding it from you, they're not psychic. They don't know that you're in need if you aren't speaking up for yourself. And so not
squeaky
only
wheel gets the oil.
I'm sorry?
The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Absolutely. We have to know who needs the grease, right? So it's really nice to hear that you acknowledging that you were going to need support and seeking it out paid off.
Well, that
I think
wasn't my sole reason of attending these programs. I attended them programs and studies in school just to better myself and put my time to good use. And as a result, it just naturally built a rapport with the volunteers coming in. That's not why I sought these programs. Or if I go to here, then these guys will help me. It just formulated like that unintentionally.
Right. But you chose not to go it alone, both through your sentence and in reentry. You you built that support system, you know, regardless of the intentions, the support system was the result, and it's paid off. And what incredible things you've been able to accomplish in just a handful of years.
Oh yeah, that's amazing. It's truly God at work, you know, because it wasn't my doing. I wouldn't know what to do out here after all that time. But like I said, grace of God and putting the right people in my path to help me with this transition made a huge difference. It's hard telling how I could have handled this transition without that.
Right. Well, congratulations on all of your success. And I know that it sounds like you're going to be able to hang out through most of our session. So if anyone in our audience has a question for Matt and wants to put it into the chat, we are a few minutes ahead of our anticipated schedule. Not a whole bunch, Matt. You did great. And so we can pause to answer any questions if anybody wants to now. And if we don't have those, or we think you guys have fully kind of taken in what Matt had to share, we're grateful to have him hanging out with us. And we have some information from Jamie coming up on credit and financial preparedness as well. Okay, so the chat's quiet. We're after lunch, so that happens sometimes as folks come back after lunch, they get a little quiet. But Matt, I don't know if you can see it. Allie from Brightview says she doesn't have a question, just wanted to forward her gratitude for you sharing your story and refreshing the hope for those people that are out there trying to help.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a perfect sentiment. We appreciate it. And, you know, to continue this message of navigating some of these difficulties as folks come out of incarceration, I want to introduce Jamie Kendrick-Porter. Jamie comes to us from the Alternative Bureau and works with folks to help them rebuild credit and navigate some financials. So Jamie, happy to have you here. If you want to start by introducing yourself, I'm going to get your slides up on screen here.
Hi, everyone. So Jennifer pretty much introduced me pretty well. My name is Jamie, and I work with the organization called the Alternative Bureau, where we pretty much just help underserved and underdeveloped communities with getting started with fixing their credit, and then also understanding the basics with their financial needs and advocating for themselves, knowing what questions to ask and who to ask them to. And I'm super excited to be here. I actually was introduced to helping inmates or reentrants because my dad was just recently up for parole, and some of the questions that he had, he didn't have answers to. And I didn't either at first, because I'm like, well, I don't know how to help someone who's freshly new to finances or freshly new to like as far as not having a credit history, because he's been locked up for about 29 years now. So it was all about just asking the right questions. So asking him what his goals were, what his expectations were, and what his requirements were. And that's what really pushed me to being excited and interested in helping other inmates. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the presentation. And if you see me looking to the side, it's just because I want to make sure I stay on track. And then I also have a script, because I'll get to like rambling. So just give me 1 second. Okay, so I already pretty much introduced like who I was and who the Alternative Bureau is. Just to recap, we help people like the underserved community and underdeveloped people get started with fixing their credit and get started with their finances. And I just want to go over the agenda. It'll be real quick and simple and to the point. We'll talk about what a good budget is, opening a banking account, and getting started with navigating credit and handling your credit reports. Next slide. I want to first go in with the challenge a lot of people, or a lot of things that I hear when people are first getting out of prison, re-entrance and re-entering back into the world. One of the many challenges that they face after incarceration is being unfamiliar with financial concepts and tools. So in this conversation, we're just going to talk about the 3 important things when getting started with navigating your credit and re-entry after incarceration. And these aren't like the end all be all. These are just the basics with getting you started and putting your foot out there. So the first one would be budgeting. The second one will be opening up a banking account, so getting you started with understanding finances and then getting you started with credit. Additionally, we'll go over the statistics of people who get out of prison and learn that they have faced identity theft, or also the ones that's been locked up since such a young age, they don't have a chance with credit history, so they're starting from the very beginning. So our first focus will be how to have a good budget and what helps you build a good budget and maintain it. So for me, and when I have clients or when I'm teaching others, a good budget is not a one size fit all. A budget that fits person A may not fit person B. So a budget is something that fits an individual's unique life and is easy for them to stick to. A good budget doesn't try to like reinvent the wheel or figure out some new magical way. It sticks to the basics. So the most important needs for a reentry is food, shelter, and clothing. And with available, there may be available resources out there, but sometimes there's still certain needs that that person may have that be required that'll cost money. So things like identification, so like IDs and birth certificate. So how do we budget that and how do we get people prepared for that? So we keep it simple. We list out the needs that a person may have, or you will list out the needs that you will have. So that's housing. Sometimes that can be rent, or sometimes that can be rental for halfway housing, or like Matt said, like a room with a private lender, utilities. So for you, that may look like electric, heat, water. Nowadays, we need a phone when we're traveling somewhere. So cell phone bills, transportation. So that can be like a Lyft or a bus pass, or you have a car. So you need to know how much money you're going to need for transportation. Obviously, we need money for food. And then we get down to the personal. So money for IDs, money's for birth certificates and hygienes. And then most importantly, money for emergency savings. And that is one of the things that people don't have when they're first entering into the world. So now that you have a list of needs and the amounts, what's your income and pay frequency if you have that? Or how are you getting funds to be able to take care of the things that you listed out? So now it's time to deduct those needs from your pay, and you will continue with revision and implementing it. So maybe last month you were not able to stick to your budget. So when you're going through revision, why weren't you able to stick to your budget? And what are some new things that you can implement to your budget for you to be able to stick to? So a good way to stick to your budget is to see exactly where your money is coming and where it's going, which will take us to our next topic, which is opening up banking accounts, which is also a big challenge for reentrants, because opening up a banking account, you need a lot of things. You need a home address, an email address, phone number, and identification such as ID, social security number, and the minimum required deposit amounts. But a banking account is really good to have because that also helps you with that concept of budgeting. A lot of banking accounts give you that online platform for you to be able to see what's coming and what's going. So there's tons of banking institutions out there, but I wanted to keep it simple and like clear and concise. So I'll go with the main three, which is commercial banks. So that's like Chase and Bank of America. You also have credit unions like RightPat and Kimba, and online banking like Ali Bank and Esso Banks. My favorite one is credit union because they partner with a lot of community resources to help individuals that are reentering back into the world. So one of the ways to combat constantly being told no when it comes to your finances or open up a banking account is to try to apply in person versus online. At that point, you can have with you some supporting documents showing like, hey, I've been in prison for X amount of years, but here's my identification and here's what I need to do. Have your bank deposit ready, have proof of income, be prepared to ask questions like about their fees and features. That is where you will have the chance to be able to advocate for yourself. And then also when you're doing this, look into what their community resources are. So maybe you got declined online, but if you go in person and they hear your story, like, oh, well, we work with this company or we work with this community. If you go through them, we'll be able to get you a banking account open up. That is one of the best things because that takes you to also diving in to the introduction of your credit reports. A lot of credit unions help individuals with getting their credit fixed or understanding it, because that's going to be something they require once you get into that place of having to rebuild and fix your credit. They're going to require some sort of credit history. So that takes us to the next part, which is the introduction to credit reports. And a lot of times reentrants lack a great credit report, and that can just be due to a lot of things. Being incarcerated at a young age and not having proof of age, or also facing ID theft during being incarcerated for multiple reasons. So the first thing I want to do, which a lot of people don't understand, is just dive into what the basis of credit is. So if you look at the slide there, this is how a credit score is calculated and how your credit report is read. So 35% of your of your credit score is your payment history. Then you move on to 30% of amounts owed, then 15% of your length of history, and then the remaining is credit mix and new credit. But if you've been in prison for a certain amount of time, how do you have some of those things? You can't. So your main focus would be to focus on the things that you can control in that very moment. You can't control your history. That's history, that's gone. You obviously can't control your new credit and credit mix, because you obviously don't have that. So the main two things that's in your control is your payment history and your amounts owed. Now, I would say, like, if you're just now getting out and you're just getting started, I would say take it slow. Literally take it slow, and it's so simple. Your payment history is just paying bills on time. So if you're happy to get out and get a car payment, or happen to get out and get a contracted cell phone, or just get whatever bill that reports to your credit report, just pay it on time. Even if it's just the minimum for that moment, pay it on time. That would create a positive payment history, and that would create a credit report for you, and now get your score going. And then let's say you want to jump into, a lot of times, a lot of people are inquiring about loans when they first get out because they need money, which I would like to say sometimes is instant gratification. Just make sure you are aware of the interest and the fees. You got companies like payday loans, in which you would get a loan, but then you have to pay it back on your next payday. But then sometimes your interest be like 70%. So you will have to pay back, like, let's say you borrow $100. Now they want you to pay back $145 that next week when you get paid. That is high. However, if you don't pay it, then that will get reported to your credit report, and that will be a derogatory mark. So be careful with that. And that's why I say keep it simple and take your time and go slow. It doesn't have to be, this just big, amazing thing. One account of a great payment history will help you out tremendously. And then your other focus will be your amounts owed. And one of the things that I heard Matt say in the beginning of his testimony, he used a secure credit card, and that's exactly what I have on my script. That would be the best way for you to start. One, you'll be using your own money, so you will appreciate it so much more. And then two, you'll understand the concept of how a credit card works. You got the money on there, you spend it, now you need to put it back on there. That will help grow your amounts owed, but then also tackle into your payment history. That a secure credit card, I would say, would pretty much be the number one way to tap into your amounts owed and getting your credit score up there. And I would say do that for a year, and you should start seeing some improvement. So I know at times, like when we get out there, we have to have these car payments and sometimes these installment loans. We just have to be careful with that and keep a positive payment history. And then on down the line, other things that will come into your control is that history and that credit mix and that new credit. But the reason why I say is really like a big journey, and take your time, because it's so easy to lose control of, especially when you're not really sure what you're doing, or when things like everything is just happening so quick. It's so easy to lose control of it. But if you focus on your amounts owed and payment history and take it slow, you'll be good. And then one of the other things that I wanted to talk about is just knowing how to advocate for yourself. No matter how bad you feel like, oh, this question is stupid, or I should know this, or they're not going to understand what I'm trying to ask, just ask a question. Like, that is literally in your control. Just ask a question. So if it's a creditor, or if it's somebody that you're working with in a community, or a close friend or a family member, just ask. Just ask them, like, I'm struggling with this. How do I handle this? And people will help you. Like, or sometimes people get out of prison and they have stuff on their credit report from old debt, and they feel like, oh, well, this is, oh, I can't do nothing about it, but you can. So just call that place. Like, hey, I've been in prison for X amount of years. How do I get this off of my credit report? Can I pay? Is there a reduction? Is there a discount? And a lot of times you can get on a payment plan, or a lot of times they'll just reduce it. And then I talked about ID theft in the beginning. So 1 to 3 individuals getting out of prison face ID theft. And a lot of times it's ID theft within the institution. And my dad have faced this, which what I mean by that, someone as a correctional officer had used his social security number to open up a ton of loans. So when I first pulled his credit report, I'm just like, wow, what is going on? And this is 1 to 3 people that's getting out of prison face this as well. And since they don't know how to navigate this, it's just like, well, what do I do? And a lot of times, if you have the documentation, so that's like a police report, and then prove that you were in prison. And if you just give it to this company or this facility, they'll be willing to work with you and get this removed off your credit report. Sometimes it's not that easy, but you being able to know how to navigate that will be your best way of getting a jump start with it. So just to recap, the best way to navigate credit and after incarceration and getting into budgeting is to just remain steady. Don't be in such a rush. Ask questions and advocate for yourself. And that's it. I put some powerful questions for someone that's getting started, for them to ask themselves, or ask someone they're close to, or ask someone that they know in the community. If you're just not sure, if you're starting from like a blank state, these will be like some great, powerful questions for you to get started with and to ask. And that's it.
There we go. Sorry, always a little slow on the Zoom. Jamie, thank you for that. I want to leave these questions up for a moment. And so our participants, please feel free to start adding some questions into the chat. And I had one right off the bat, Jamie. I'm not super familiar with a secure credit card. It's been a long time. Is somebody going to have a bank account to get a secure credit card? Is it probably going to be issued from their bank?
Oh, I'm sorry, what was the last part?
Would it be issued by their bank? Are those the largest like issuers of secure credit cards?
You don't always have to get one from your banking institution. There are some other ones that's like private. So like Discover is a good one. They also have one called Open Sky. In my professional and personal opinion, is very safe to get one with their own banking, because it's in one platform versus having, a bank or having to go on a different site and another site. It's safe to do it on one platform when you're first getting started, but you don't have to go with your bank. There's plenty other independent ones that you can start with as well.
Okay, got it. Good to know. And dealing with some folks there in the chat. All right. So Jamie, I think one lesson that I've taken away from working with folks is that having bad credit, and quite frankly, being impoverished, can end up being really expensive. And the first thing I think of are like the buy here, pay here lots for used cars, where folks end up with car loans at interest rates of like 20%, which is so much higher than somebody with good credit would be subjected to. Can you think of any other times when having a low credit score ends up costing people money?
All the time. So I'll say the number one time it costs people a lot of money is right now. The biggest one is a car payment. So like when you have bad credit, sometimes your interest will be like 27%. So your car payment can be like $355. Sometimes that be $355 a month. So sometimes that be like 40% of people's monthly income. Mm-hmm. And if that's what your situation has to be, that's okay. But as long as you know your options. So maybe at that moment you didn't have enough money, so you had to accept that car payment or that loan. maybe next year you have more money so you can apply principal payments to kind of decrease that interest and then decrease that term that you'll have that car. So I would say that's the biggest one. Another predatory one would be the, and you have spoke about this before, but the programs that a lot of jobs offer for you to be able to get your paycheck early, or like percentage of your paycheck early. And then like, once you get your paycheck officially, you just realize you probably didn't took like 50% of your paycheck already. It's called like flex pay and things like that. So I won't say they're predatory, but a lot of things are hitting with those programs.
Yeah, I think the trade-off for folks ends up being managing the short term at the expense of the long term. So like those programs that will let you access some of your paycheck early, like ahead of payday. That's great on Wednesday when you realize you are short on cash. It's pretty bad Friday when the paycheck hits and you don't have that full paycheck coming your way. It instantly gets you into a cycle of coming up short. But programs like that are marketed for people who are in need. They have the lower credit scores. They're living, paycheck to paycheck. That's who those programs, quite frankly, target. Is it ever a good idea?
If you can make it like, okay, so if you take the money out on Wednesday, you get paid Friday, I would suggest you can probably wait till Friday. So I don't think it's ever a good idea, but like I said before, everybody's life is unique. Just my thing is the biggest one is just advocating for yourself, like knowing what your options are. So knowing if you take this out on Wednesday, they're going to take like 5% of your check. So your check is only going to be this like X amount. Do you know what you're going to do? Like, do you know what your options are? What your alternative method is? So I would say no, but if you have to, just be aware of what you're going to be doing with it.
Got it. Yeah, having at least going in with your eyes open is probably a decent first thought on programs like that. And I know we see a lot of programs that are maybe transitional employment that offer money or salary on a pay card rather than a paper check or through direct deposit. And I know personally, I've talked to clients, experiencing reentry who are starting to get in the hunt for like a rental agreement, and they have thousands of dollars on this pay card, but no, bank account or other supporting financial documents. And I always ask them, what happens if you lose your wallet and that pay card is gone? There's no protections on that money that you're just carrying around. A credit card, if it gets stolen, I can cancel it. But those pay cards, that money is just gone. Makes banking, all the more important, having some of those protections in place.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's really tricky. So really frequently I'm trying to help people that are just barely holding on. They might be experiencing homelessness. They may be in active recovery or struggling with recovery. They're in the middle of, tumultuous relationships, unemployment, and all of those things can make progress, all the more difficult and contributes to having a harder time getting ahead financially. Are there any like small sustainable things that people can do, like to keep their finances in the best shape possible, or at least stay on top of them? Like the first thing I thought of was using an app to keep an eye on your bank account or your credit card statements to make sure there's no fraudulent charges or identity theft going on. Are there other small free things that people can do?
Yeah, track your spending. That'll probably be the easiest thing. So like every time you go shopping or every time you spend money, even if it's just something as simple as just writing it down. I know now banks, you can get a text message every time you spend something. You need to see, like people need to see it. We just need to be aware, like, okay, I have $50. I just spent $20 here on X amount of items that I maybe needed or didn't need. So really the easiest free thing to do is to just track your spending. Like be aware of what you're spending money on, how often, why, and if you need to.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Just staying on top of how much money is coming in and how much is going out. I see advertisements all the time for free credit monitoring services. Are there any that, come with especially good benefits? Anything to avoid? I know years ago I signed up for one and it turns out it was free for a year. And then after that year, it was actually kind of expensive. What should folks look out for if they're looking to get credit monitoring?
Me personally, I am like a real accountability person. I don't leave nothing in nobody else's hands. So I literally check, and I tell my clients this too. Like I literally check my credit report myself every month. Now, should you sign up for certain ones? I think there's some called IQ. Now, credit bureaus do it for you. That is free, especially due with the COVID situation. I don't know if it's still free now where they'll send you notifications that someone signed up for you, but I always make it a habit to just check it myself. Like even if you want to use, I don't really have a suggestion on a perfect company because I'm not gonna say they're all the same, but all of it is kind of like you're still sort of putting it in somebody else's hand to catch it. So check it yourself. Like even if it's not every month, at least every 3 months, just check your credit report, make sure everything you see on there is familiar to you so you can know.
Okay. Yeah, and nothing's better than doing it yourself, right? So where should somebody go to check their credit themselves? Like even if it's monthly or annually?
So you can go to annualcreditreport.com. At that point, you'll get a free copy. They're allowing people to do it twice a week right now. They've been doing that for a while, but if not, then you can just do it once a year and that'll give you a detailed credit report for each credit bureau. So TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. Also Credit Karma, I know they get a bad rep, but they're free and they I'll say they really target the people that's really just getting into it. They have a section for free tips, they have articles. And then also Experian gives you a free copy of your report. They have this app and it's free, it's totally free. And Equifax also has one that's totally free, and myficoscore.com has one that's totally free that you can get on. You can look at your credit report and then you can also look at your score. The only difference with those individual apps, it just gives you the score for those credit bureaus. But there's always like free resources out there. But if you wanted to stick with one platform, I would definitely suggest annualcreditreport.com or Credit Karma, only because they're really good for beginners.
Okay, good to know. And if you are checking your own credit report, that doesn't negatively impact your credit score. Is that right?
Right, it does not.
Okay. And if you're out car shopping or mortgage shopping and you have lenders checking your credit, what's the impact on credit score there?
Well, I can't give away like points, but
Sure.
let's say you're going to CarMax and you want to be and you're interested in getting a car and your credit score isn't that good. What I can tell you, they will send your information out to a lot of lenders, and each lender will pull a copy of your credit report. So it will look like multiple inquiries. And those are hard inquiries. So yeah, it will have a negative impact on your credit report, on your credit score. As far as mortgages, there is this thing that credit bureaus do where you will be in a situation and they know you're shopping around for mortgages. So that won't be so tough or rough. Yeah.
So on the topic of mortgages, I'd love to bounce back to Matt for just a second. And Matt, just a personal question. What can you tell us about your first house? What do you love most about it?
Pretty much everything is why I bought it. But it's a fascinating story in itself because the house I was renting is right around the block. And every time I was walking my dog, this house was sitting there empty. And I was inquiring because it's a perfect size, it has a nice double lot fenced in, it'd be perfect for my dog, it's in a great neighborhood, but I could never catch the owner because I'm always at work. One day I had the day off and I was walking my dog and he was there mowing his grass, and I was able to start a conversation with him, and he asked me if I'm interested. I said, yeah. So he took me inside and I saw the potential of it. So we exchanged information because he said make him an offer. I didn't know what to offer him.
Right.
So it didn't sit right in my spirit because I really wanted the house. So that night I got pre-approved online, and the next day I went to him and said, hey, I'm ready to make an offer. Then we negotiated back and forth till we agreed on the price, and that's how I got it. I got it before he put it on the market, because had he put it on the market, I would have lost it. So I beat him to the punch and I was able to secure it. But just the fact it's the perfect size, it has a nice fenced in yard, nice community, it's close to work, close to shopping, close to home. So it was just a blessing. It was the perfect house for me. So I love everything about it.
You
And I
having
renovated it before I moved in. So I had the floors restored, painted all the walls, put my own special touches on it. So it came out really nice.
Are you having fun furniture shopping?
No, I've had the furniture. So it's fun. I'm a shopaholic, probably because I've been deprived of that all my life. So I love shopping. I can probably outshop any woman.
Well, congratulations on that again. It's just amazing. And I was so excited to hear how much of the overlap there was between the steps that you took and the practical tips that Jamie is recommending in her work. It sounded like you were following, her steps on your own.
Without even realizing it.
You two weren't working together, but it sounds like, so much of what Jamie shared, you had put into use and it paid off. So I think everything we heard from her was super practical, and you're the evidence of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I have the volunteers and my network, my support system help guide me through all that as well.
Yeah, it's because it's complex, to figure these things out. And everybody wants to feel good about, whatever step that they are taking, that it's going to be a positive one for the future. So again,
the key word that I seen in Jamie's thing was the intimidation. It's such a fearful thing, especially for a long-term offender, not knowing what to expect when you get released. It's so intimidating and fearful, which is more of a reason to have a nice support system to help you through that fear and intimidation. And fortunately, I had that, but like I said, most guys don't when they get out, and it's so intimidating. I was intimidated, and I had all the help I could have.
Right. Well, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this, but sorry, everyone. That alert came through and it made me jump. So that will be recorded forever on the Building Bridges YouTube page, is me getting startled by the national alert. Sorry about that. What I was about to say to you, Matt, in your situation, you were, released after 33 years of incarceration, but honestly, it was like being released financially as a teenager. You were 18 financially.
Right. And that was one of the struggles, because they don't teach you that stuff in prison. I never had to deal with the adult stuff, filing for taxes, filling out this form, applying for this. I just went to school and came home and played. So then I went to prison and I got out. Now I got to do all this adult stuff, but no one ever showed me how.
Right.
And they didn't have programs in there to teach you. So.
Yeah, I know we offer Money Smart in our institutions, but there's still plenty of gaps in this arena. So I'm just really happy to see how much your experience and Jamie's expertise aligned. I think that's fantastic. And as I continue, folks are coming and going, into our session here. So as I deal with the waiting room here, we still have the chat open for any questions. The next round of sessions doesn't start until 2:45. So I want to make sure if anyone out there has questions or any thoughts they want to share on what we've talked about today, that you get the opportunity to do that. The chat's been quiet for a moment. So if it comes to it, I'm happy to, give our audience 10 minutes back to get that cup of coffee ahead of our 2:45 round of workshops. Jamie, before we go, if someone wanted to work with your organization or something similar, where should they go to get connected?
So they can email us, and matter of fact, I'll put it in the chat or reach out to our website. Yes, I'll put it in the chat.
Perfect. And again, that's the Alternative Bureau.
Correct.
All right, I will be bookmarking that myself to help with clients that I'm working with out in the community as they go through these processes. And so, yeah, we've got Jamie's email in the chat. It's hey@thealternativebureau.com. Perfect. Well, Jamie, thank you for bringing your expertise here today. I learned stuff that I can take into my work with clients, and we're very grateful for that. And Matt, thank you for bringing your experience to the table and sharing with us what you did. And congratulations on all of your continued success. And I fully expect by the next time I run into Rachel, I'll have found out that you've been promoted again or something.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So everyone, thank you so much. I hope that you can join us for our in-person sessions regionally. Tomorrow, all around the state, I will be at the Cincinnati event myself. But we want to thank you for your interest in reentry, building bridges of opportunity, and for saving the time in your week to come and talk through these issues with all of us. So thank you so much. Please take care of yourselves. You guys have a fantastic day. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Thanks, Jamie.